Hi guys, Toga here with a new video, and this video will be a gear update video for my warrior, and I'm going to talk a bit about my logs a bit, and what I found about warrior, because again, it's probably the first time in Classic where I actually tried to parse. Like I even joined a guild that is about parsing pretty much, and active in wall bosses and whatnot. So that's quite good, and I found it quite fun as well. And their schedule is really going well with mine, and the loot system is also quite good for myself. So pretty much the gearing update. I got a bit lucky, a bit more lucky. We got Onyxa Tooth, and we got the Viscag, the Blood Letter, and those two are like big upgrades for me. Now Viscag is not as much of an upgrade for warriors as it is for rogues, in my opinion, because your main damage dealing ability is Bloodthirst, which is about AP. Execute, which is just like flat damage with like rage conversion, and you have of course your heroic strikes, which are also very important, and your melee strikes. So it is an upgrade for sure, but it's not going to make like 100 DPS more. Okay, no problem. And right now I'm waiting for my rend buff pretty much. Okay, good, no problem. We do that. So we have Onyxia Tooth and the Viscag, which is very big. We have, of course, our Quick Strike ring, which is also pretty great. We finally have our Hand of Justice, which I got by helping a friendly guildie by doing some SGC runs, and he had already his Hajj. So I was like, okay, this is the fifth run. It will never drop, and it actually dropped. So it's pretty great as well. And that's pretty much it. I don't know. Yeah, of course we have our Helm of Wrath for tanking if I can permit myself to wear that. In general, in PvP, I wear my Goblin Rocket Helmet, my Spider Belt on CD, and if I do care about the hit, and I want to have 5% if I'm doing two-hander, or if I'm like dual wielding, the more hit I have, the better it is. I will wear the Wounds 5 scripts. Again, I just switch out my gear whenever I can, whenever I feel like it. Now, is Hajj like something I really notice while I'm playing? That's not really true. Like, I feel like it's an upgrade. It is definitely an upgrade whenever it is actually like doing the extra strike, and you get like a mini aura like on you whenever you get the extra strike. So it is noticeable while you're playing, but it's not like it's popping every single time. It's also not like going to give you a lot of DPS compared to like a rogue, because it doesn't chain on sword specialization, which you don't have as a fury warrior. Um, I am keen or trying to want to try Arms Warrior double wield in PvP. I want to try it. I don't know if it's going to be that good. Obviously, I will be having to wear Mirror Song if I do go for sword specialization. I did sim between Mirror Song and Stormstrike Hammer, and for me, Stormstrike Hammer does sim better. Obviously, if you're missing Stormstrike Hammer, it does hurt more than Mirror Song, but every single time you're hitting for twice as much, pretty much. So I do like Stormstrike Hammer as an offhand, for now, at least. And overall, I'm very happy about the gear I have. Obviously, I'm not really well enchanted. Like, I'm very like, I don't want to spend enchants on my legs or my helm, because it feels like I'm spending way too much whenever I'm doing that. Like, I think it's 300 gold on my realm, the Librams, which is crazy to think. But like, I switch out between Cadaverous Armor and Tombstone Breastplate in PvP. I do play with my Devil Soul leggings, for example. I go for these gear, and whenever I'm like having to tank on Gar, for example, or on Majordomo, I go for Aegis of Stormwind, which is not a great. I need to replace it pretty much. but once I replace it, it's going to be even better, obviously. Um, yeah, I think I'm going to talk a bit about the raiding experience, parsing as a warrior. It's interesting. I think most of the things that you are um, most of the things that you are doing as a warrior compared to another warrior is having a good raiding group. If you're like doing a pug, for example, uh, if you have a raiding pug that is not really willing to take some sacrifice or like coordinate on some bosses, you're not going to do well. If a boss is like dying in 50 seconds or in 30 seconds or in 10 seconds, the parse is really different. Like the longer the fight it is, the worse the parse. It is not like total damage done, it is literally like DPS. So it is a calculation on damage per second. So if your DPS at the start of fight is 1.5k and it drops drastically every single second, well, if the boss dies in 2 seconds, then you will get more DPS than if it actually drops in 8 seconds. Except if you're like doing more damage over time, which you don't need a lot of ramp as a warrior to do a lot of damage, because you can just pop a mighty rage potion, you can do a bloodthirst, get a proc on Crusader, for example, and if you're able to do executes, obviously it's going to be big. If you're critting, if the boss dodges the execute, it is really a feels bad moment. But overall, I'm enjoying um, playing a warrior in PvE. Now in PvP, it's a whole different story. I think it's like really dependent on if you're playing like a group or if you're doing solo, if you're fighting a lot of mages. I feel like I'm fighting more mages than anything else, so my experience is not that positive about warrior. Now I'm leveling my druid. He's level 54, so he is going to be the mage crusher, while my warrior is really just like a big crusher for in general. I'm fighting rogues very well. Like I win versus rogues most of the time. I have some difficulties versus druid, except if I'm fapping. um, if I'm fighting a shaman, it depends on how big he crits. You have a lot of like, for example, priest. You can win if you have a bit of rage. If you do pop like a rage potion, you are going to be having a better time than if you're not popping a rage potion. I'm not talking about mighty rage. I'm talking like any rage potion. And in general, like it feels pretty good. Um, so yeah, I feel like PvP it's really dependent on who you're facing, what you're facing, when you're facing. If you have like two-hander, if you don't have a two-hander, dual wielding feels quite good if you're not missing all the attacks. Like in general, if you're comparing the Istanbul Force with Vizcag, it's literally more worth to go Vizcag in most situations, even though it lacks the stats which are like stamina, strength, and crit. I do feel like it's really a slow weapon, and it hits for quasi the same as a Viscag. So yeah, I really need a two-hander upgrade, and at that point it becomes interesting for me to um, yeah, to play a two-hander. Like right now it feels I get more by dual wielding. And that's why I want to try dual wielding arms. So I still have more strike. The damage is not going to be drastically low. It is definitely going to be lower. Sweeping strike is not as important while you're dual wielding, because most likely your offhands are going to take the hits. You're not going to have a dual wield specialization, except if you're like dropping enrage, which is not always ideal. So that's not like a choice you have to make. And yeah, I think Fury PvP is interesting if you're playing with improved intercept. You can, for example, drop the improved execute, because executing PvP is not always like recommended, because you're going to drop rage, which is not good. Obviously, if you have like no rage, you cannot really follow up any attack. But normally, if you're executing, you're going to execute the enemy, so they're going to die most likely. You're not going to have Death Wish if you're arms, but if you're Fury, you have Death Wish, which is one of the best CDs in the game, especially if you're facing a Warlock or a Priest. They are going to suffer because there like are no escapes from you. Just is like the problem of having enough rage versus a priest. Versus a warlock, if he has succubus, you will have to need your self-inflicting damage like possibilities, for example, like Skull of Impending Doom, so you can get out of those charms because your Berserker Rage doesn't get you out of charms in Classic. Um, but yeah, I think if you're like playing Fury PvP, having 34 points is the maximum because you really want to have Impale. So you will decide. Like I think improved intercept is very good if you're thinking about the um, like 4 set, which is going to become the 3 set with Marshall, which is like 5 seconds CD reduction on intercept plus 10, which is 15. So your intercept becomes a 15-second CD, which is really big. It is like a charge. So if you're charging, then you have intercept. You know that you're not going to have to rely on the charge out of combat because again you're not going to drop combat because you're always going to try to stick to the enemy, especially if you're playing with Goblin Rocket Helm. It becomes a bit better, and if you're like fapping versus a mage, normally you are able to stick on the mage. He'll most likely have to double ice block polymorph, and that will be enough. But yeah, I think I'm going to test it out. If I get a better shield, maybe I'm going to try Shield Slam. I want to try Protection Warrior. I think it's going to be quite fun. The damage is not that bad on Shield Slam. I think the amount of damage you can do with Protection is lower. But I think with Viscag, at least your Heroic Strikes are dealing some okay damage. And having a big stun is going to be helpful versus a lot of classes. So I want to test that out as well. Speaking of logs, really quickly, let's talk about logs. I think that's going to be quite interesting. Again, I'm not the best bosser in the world. Like, it's not going to happen most likely. But right now, like this is from previous week, pretty much. Like most of the new numbers you see are from previous week, and I was having rend. I had like full consumes. I didn't flask, of course, because I don't really care. The amount of HP is not going to help me. But it feels like really good. I obviously have 90 on Lucifron, and again, um, if you're like wrecking on Lucifron, and you're able to do, no, I did wreck on Gehennas. I don't remember Gehennas or Lucifron. I think mostly Lucifron. What we did is we just cleaved. That is a DPS boost, like for sure. If you're able to cleave like the targets, and you're ignoring the fact that you are going to hit someone within the mind control, then you're going to do some big deeps. Obviously, we had restorative pots. We had also like people like on like full dispel duty, so it was possible. But of course, this DPS is really good. It's very hard to get like higher, depending. Like I have to sacrifice a lot of stuff. For example, Magmadar is the same. I think it's okay. You can actually like go higher, but since the fights are not really fast, it drops very low, and you have to execute. And the execute window is the one that you're going to have like the best DPS. But the issue is if you get dodged, or you have like you can't really miss, but you have a reason where you're not going to have a full hit execute. It kind of sucks. Gehennas, I think like really I'm very happy about that. Like 1.6k DPS, which is pretty massive. Gar, I'm on like tank duty. If I have like a bit better gear for just tanking and doing some high DPS, it could be better because I'm playing with a shield versus Gar. I don't want to die and lose my consumes. Then we do boon until we have like I think the Shazra fight. No, we boon at Shazra to get like to Sulfuron. But like Baron Geddon, it's again I think we need to wreck to make me like bars on it. I think this week we do wreck on Baron. I don't know. Like we do decide like 2 bosses to wreck every single week. That's from my understanding, to fix our parses or our numbers, and this is going to help us to get higher. And Shazra, like I think it's a very good one as well. Again, depends on how fast you get it low and if you get dodged on an execute, which sometimes happens, and that is like enough to kill your high DPS. So from, I think the fight is like pretty straightforward. It should be higher for me. I think I got like ruined on a lot of occasions because I didn't fap. So I don't know if it's going to be helping me if I do. Need to try it out. Gold mag, I think what we need to do is like get the dogs on the boss and like get a cleave going on. I don't know how you can get it very high because again I didn't like wreck on gold mag, so I don't know if it's going to be like changing a lot on that occasion. Maybe it could. Again, depends. Majordomo, again, I'm tanking, so if I do more DPS, I'll get like a better parse, but that's not really the goal of me tanking Majordomo. And then Ragnaros, which is, again, I think if I do wreck, this is going to be drastically changing. I think you don't need like extreme DPS to get like a 99 or a 97. I think like it is required 1.1k, I think, or something like that, which is, again, if I'm wrecking, I will get it. That's the thing. And like I don't get away because I have intercept, right? So I don't need to stop DPS like a lot of classes do. And again, if you just like take it, intercept, and then you're still doing the damage, automatically your DPS is going to be higher. So that's pretty much like my opinion on every single fight and how I like think about the numbers I have. It could be higher, but right now I'm actually satisfied. Like I'm not like the most craziest geared like warrior in the game for sure. Like I still miss onslaught. I didn't have this gag for these fights. I didn't have like Oni neck. Now I don't need to sacrifice a lot of stuff to get the hit. So that's very big as well. I don't think I had Hajj. Maybe I had Hajj. I don't remember. But this is like really good. So I look forward to do even more damage. I don't know if there is a way on Warcraft logs to see the amount of Hush procs there is on bosses. If anyone knows, please let me know so I can actually like compare between counterattack lodestone and Hush, because it feels like Hush right now. To me, that it is kind of a. It's not a bait because obviously it's better than counterattack lodestone, but it is not like the messiah trinket that a lot of people are like talking about. So I don't know. That's pretty much my opinion on it. I did give me an opinion on how raiding is for warriors, how PvP it is for warriors. I talked about my gear. I talked about my plans in the future, like testing like specs. So let me know in the comment section below what I'm going to do for Classic right now. And that's my plan going forward, is to concentrate on my Druid and my Warrior. I'll do content for both, so don't be afraid. You still are going to see Warrior and Druid content. For Priest, on the other hand, like I completely dropped kinda. Like I'm not raiding this week for MC or for Oni. I don't know if it's going to change in the future. Like I'm not even ranking on it. I personally don't like my priest too much, especially since I'm playing warrior, and even more since I'm playing druid, where it is really different. Like the mobility is different, the feeling is different. Although I know like priest is strong because again shadow priest is strong in PvP at least. I feel like I'm not having enough fun to justify that. So for now, I'm going to keep it like this. Still waiting for the rent. I don't know if it's going to happen. But yeah, again, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.